We are live.
Are we live? Okay. Oh, man. Hello. All our perfection all these years with a highly produced show is going out the window today, ladies and gentlemen, as I don't even hear myself. Something I told you would not happen yesterday is happening, actually. We decided not to do a television show in our new studio because we're not ready yet. But you know what? Mark was up very, very late last night and got the stuff ready and timed the show for the guy next door to start up his grinding machine or whatever the heck that is that's going on. But regardless of that, we have a fabulous show for you today on a highly controversial issue. An issue that has been beat around for 30 years, and one that's been reinvigorated. Oh, I can hear myself think now. One that's been reinvigorated. And the issue, before we introduce our special guest, is whether or not the several states in America, the 50 states, should call a convention, and in that convention, discuss in a very limited way specific amendments to the United States Constitution. Now, historically, people have referred to this as a constitutional convention, a con, and I was even involved in that years ago.
Yes.
But there's a new day with new people really excited because of the judicial supremacy coming out of the Supreme Court and the executive supremacy and hubris, the executive hubris coming out of Washington that simply says, I'll do whatever I want to do with that Constitution. And some people in some states somewhere want to bring this back to reality. We have a special guest with us, this guy right here. You're in our new studio, sir. How you doing?
What a pleasure.
Yeah. You are christening our new studio.
Let me just say this. You have done overnight, you have put this together.
That guy over there, not me. I was smoking cigars somewhere, you know.
Right, we talked about doing this just on the air.
Yeah.
Then last night late you called me and said, no, dress like you want to look like.
Yeah. The original plan was months ago.
He's lost his audio. His microphone needs to go closer.
Yeah, you gotta get your mic closer.
It just will not stay there, folks.
All right, well.
All right.
We
Better?
sort of, but we'll manage. You're gonna have to twist it somehow to make it work.
Maybe that worked. Is that better?
There we go.
Okay.
Good. He got it. No,
It's touching my whiskers.
He gets stuck. I'll try to amp him up here. That's gonna.
Whatever.
Yeah, you have to amp him up. Here, come here. Let me bend that thing for a second. Hey, live television. This is the way it is. It's got to go like that and in there. You know what? I don't know if that. Let's try that. See if that works.
Look, it's way out there now.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
Give me the golden mic. All right. I'll just do this. I'll hold it up here.
We're fine. We'll go with it.
Yeah, he'll ramp it up a little bit.
I'll be Edward R. Murrow.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, only hear it. No, it'll be fine. Oh, there. Perfect. You got it perfect. All right. Well, this is live television. We have in our studio Mr. Claude O'Donovan, very good friend of mine for many, many years. Claude O'Donovan. I'll tell you about what he's doing. And we're going to get into really some very significant constitutional issues today. But I got to tell you, we put out a little video yesterday on Facebook that we are not going to be doing a television show simply because we're not ready. But we said, you know what? The heck with it.
Heck with ready.
The heck with being ready. Well, let's just do it because that's the best way you learn. And the lesson, the takeaway for everybody today is sometimes you just got to dive in and make it happen. So if the microphone goes on his whiskers and sticks in his nose, don't worry about it, okay? And if my blue shirt turns red, it doesn't matter. And if all the doors open to go outside and the soundproof room is not, hey, that's the way it is. And you know what? I learned, Claude, a long time ago. If you do one thing every day that you don't want to do, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to do this, but you do it, and you don't do something you do want to do every day, within 6 weeks, now this is ethical, moral stuff, nothing. Within 6 weeks, you develop an ironclad constitution and a capability to accomplish and overcome anything thrown in your path. What about
Willpower.
that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, I infuse it with a little bit of help from God, but notwithstanding that, I have practiced that. And in fact, I did something today I really didn't want to do. I was going up on a ladder very high to get the DirecTV guys here today, putting that in and all that. I had to go on the roof to get this old satellite dish and this rickety ladder, holding it. I got memories of a friend of mine falling off a ladder. But I said, you know what? Just do it. You got to do it. Get it done. Don't worry about it. And didn't have to go on a ladder. We used the forklift.
I did one
So-
much more challenging.
Today?
Yeah.
What's that?
I ate one of those donuts.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I ate it.
Oh, okay.
That was challenging.
Okay, that was, yeah. All right, Tom Trento, Enemies of the State, WSBR Radio. You're on the radio with us on AM radio, 740 AM. Mark, you sure this thing's coming out? I'm getting all kinds of
You're blasting it.
distortion in my ear. But what do we got? Now, Damon isn't here, our producer. Where is Damon? Are you on the mic or no?
He's sick.
I don't hear you.
He's sick.
No, I don't hear him. Damon is sick. He's taken ill. So our prayers go out to Damon for a speedy recovery. We need him back here in the new studio. He's the producer that puts a lot of the stuff together that makes Mark look good.
Makes my mind fit.
Yeah, it makes all that stuff work. We're moving ahead. Tom Trento, Enemies of the State. The time is, I'm working backwards now. We have 49 minutes left in the show, 56. So 56, 7 minutes, 12 minutes. How's that? After 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday, the 9th of February. We had a phenomenal weekend. We moved all weekend. We got about another 7 days to move. Then we'll be fully in the new studio. We have an upstairs and downstairs. We'll show you all about that, folks. Thank from the bottom of our hearts, all of you that are donating, helping us do this. We need quite a bit more to make it happen the way it's supposed to happen. And we appreciate everything you're doing. Right now, we want to get into the subject at hand. And, the guys who gave their treasure, their heart, their life, their fortunes, 238 years ago now, they tried to be forward-thinking. And unlike today, where we're preoccupied with recreation, these guys basically were intellects, were academics. They study the arts, they study the classics. They knew the Greek language, they knew Latin, they understood philosophy, they understood theology, they understood the political theories floating around. And they had to come together. Many of them were in their 20s. There's some senior folks there like Franklin. I don't hear myself anymore. But they had to sit down and look forward and say, 50 years from now, 100 years from now, who would have thought 238 years from now?
Exactly.
We got to write something today that works 238. You do that, Claude. You write something today that works tomorrow,
That's right.
These guys were forward-thinking, and they built in some principles that identified the flaws of humankind. And they said, no matter what, still human beings. You can have the best structure in the world, they're still human beings. We've got to build in a check and balance system, and they built that into the Constitution. And they knew that there needed to be some sort of centralized government when you have states growing. You got to have some center. But when you give power and money to a centralized core, these guys understood world history, then the abuses occur. So you had to have some safeguards if that central core, Washington, D.C., ever got Leviathan, became the Leviathan that it's become today by both parties. By both parties. So you're here because you are involved centrally and significantly in what? What's it called?
It's called Convention of States. It's a movement that's about 18 months old at this point. We are moving extremely fast, very well organized. It's an incredible thing put together by some of the greatest leaders, constitutionalists in the country. These are the kinds of men that you just described. They live today, folks. So you know, some
Still
people,
guys
"Oh,
like
we
that,
don't
sure,
have
yeah.
Jeffersons, we do. They're there. These kinds of men have studied the very subjects you've talked. They've even got more because they've got 230 years of stuff. You know, those guys, it was wonderful what happened in 1787. But believe me, they had a major failure just before that. And that was the Confederacy. What am I trying to say? What they rewrote was
Articles of Confederation.
I'm
Oh.
talking about a brain.
Oh, okay.
Articles of
The
Confederation.
Articles of
Well, there's no
Confederacy-
distractions in here, you know.
Yeah, the Articles of Confederacy ruled over 13 sovereign nations, not states, nations. And they tried in that fashion to make things work, and it wasn't working. In fact, it was a disaster. And they knew that if they continued on that track, that this country was not going to last very long.
All right, so they had to come up with something else. They sat down and
Right, well,
wrote up the Constitution. They used their iPads and they made a Constitution.
yeah, actually, what a lot of people don't know is there was a quote, constitutional convention the year before. They didn't call it that then. It was the Annapolis Convention in 1786. And it was poorly attended, but they sat down and put the framework together. They said that we have to meet next year, and they chose Philadelphia, and it was called the Philadelphia Convention.
Okay.
And they said we have to write something that will meet the exigencies of our problem with our nation. That exigencies means emergency, because it was all falling apart. And they were given a set of rules that, hey, go ahead and rewrite this and make it right. A lot of people want to tell you that they weren't supposed to do that, but they were. The directions from the different states told them to do that. The 1786 convention told them to do that, and they rewrote the convention.
All right, well, what we're doing today, folks, at about something after 4 o'clock here. Let me see. I got my little, this thing keeps moving around. Tom Trento, Enemies of the State, name of the show. And the enemies today that we're looking at are those who are abusing this Constitution in an amazingly horrible way, whether it's through the increase of the federal debt, blowing off balanced budget amendments, those sort of situations, whether it's through on the social issues of finding in the penumbra of the Constitution in 1973 Roe versus Wade decision that unborn children really don't have any rights, and that another person's rights supersede. All of these issues that go way beyond the constraints of the Constitution have resulted in a group of people today, particularly with this particular administration, without question, and even portions of George Bush's administration, where the spending got completely out of control. A group of people have said, all right, we got to sort this thing out. How do we do that? The typical way, Claude, and Claude and I go back a long time. We're friends 20 years probably, right? We've done a lot of stuff, different things together through the years. You moved to where? Where do you live now?
I live near Aiken, South Carolina. It's nirvana.
You like it, really?
I wish I'd have lived there all my life, though.
Oh, well, you were a Florida boy for a while, but you've been in the United States Army.
I'm native California. I was a warrant officer in the Army, flew helicopters, did that kind of stuff. Also spent a stint in the Air Force, 4.5 years in the Air Force. So I got over 7 years of service to our country.
All right. God bless you.
And whatever. But you mentioned the branches of government that are abused. There's 4 branches of government. There was only supposed to be
4, wait a minute.
There's only supposed to be 3, right? We're talking about the executive,
The executive, which is the president.
and the judicial.
The executive, which is the president.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The judicial, which is the Supreme Court, all the court system.
And the
The
legislature.
legislative, the elected
the House
officials,
and Senate,
Senate and the
right,
House.
right.
That's all there are.
No, there's a 4th one.
What's the 4th one?
It's called the bureaucracy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was started in the 1930s when they created the first federal agency called the WPA. They wanted to put people to work, and but the unintended consequence was that opened up the Commerce Clause of the convention of the Constitution, that they began to justify all these federal agencies under that. The Commerce Clause was meant to be about transportation of goods between states. but it was only written commerce between states. So they've used that to mean, for instance, if a pregnant woman goes from one state to the other and has an abortion, that's commerce. That's how they justify all these federal agencies. And every one of them, frankly, is unconstitutional because guess what they can do? They write laws.
Yeah.
They write laws daily. Last year, almost 3,600 laws were written. They called them regulations. But guess what? You can be arrested. You can be put in jail without trial. You can be fined and not without due course under these regulations.
All right, so something's got to change, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that's one of the areas.
So the
all
bureaucracy,
all four branches are gone crazy.
and no one who's sentient, no one who's breathing and thinking and living would argue that there is a bureaucracy, almost a Politburo communist type bureaucracy. Certainly in many areas of Washington now with the new Obamacare situation, it is just absurd if you've tried to navigate through that just for the heck of it.
No.
So we do have this situation. But one of the criticisms of a convention of states, and we're going to understand in a second the difference between a constitutional convention and a convention of states. One of the criticisms is, hey, look, we got a great structure. The framers put the structure together. We just have bad people there. And to a degree, this is very true because I make this argument a lot. I tell people who want to have a revolution and all these things, I said, look, we're 100 people away from federal offices getting elected. You elect 100 good people, and you can right this ship. Nobody wants a revolution, but the question now is, has the structure even been so damaged that even if you put good people in there, there's a bad structure? Before you answer that, Claude O'Donovan, and you are the South Carolina Legislative Liaison. What are you doing down here, carpetbagger? Why are you down in Florida?
I'm down.
Leave us alone. We don't want no convention of states.
It's my wife.
Or is it too late?
Yeah, what do you mean in South
In
Carolina?
Florida.
It's not too late because Florida, bless their hearts, has already passed our bill. It's already been submitted to Congress. Georgia has followed suit, and Alaska, of all things, those three last year, at the very beginning of our movement, immediately passed this. They saw the wisdom of it. I wish all the other states would follow suit in that. But they quickly passed it last year, and I'm thrilled to death with Florida.
Well, hang on. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, because we have people cycle in. We're about 20 minutes into our show here, and without all the super-duper clocks that I normally have, I got to do a little math as I'm speaking. Did you ever try to do that? Do math while you're speaking? Let's do it this way, Claude.
Multitask.
38 from 50 is what, 22?
Mm-hmm.
Minus 5, 17. So 5.
Forget it.
I know those numbers, but
Tom, forget it.
if there's forget it.
You got about 30 minutes.
All right, let's do it this way. Why is the burden on me to tell people what time it is? They can look at their stupid watches.
That's right.
Why don't I just tell them how much time is left in the show?
Why would you have to tell them the time anyway? Why don't
Okay,
you just
there's 37 minutes left in the show. But about you go figure out what time it is.
look at your
okay?
stupid clock on your dial?
Yeah, go figure out what time it is. But the thing, Claude, is we have people cycle in about every 20 minutes. So I'm here today, Tom Trento, Enemies of State, our very first show in our new studios, ladies and gentlemen.
I know it doesn't look like it.
I have no idea what's behind me. The sound that's coming out of my ear doesn't sound too good. I see you. We have a bigger table here. We're not like this anymore, which is cool.
Love the brown at top.
We have no producer. We have no soundproofing. I hear people talking downstairs, but you know what? This is what you get. It's Verte radio and television. But we have Claude O'Donovan with us, and not only is he a dear friend, he's the South Carolina Legislative Liaison for the Convention of States. That is an event that people hope occurs in the near future, in our lifetime, in the next 5 years, whatever. We'll get into those questions. If you're interested in a convention of states where the states can wrest control back from the federal government and return it to the states, and I'm very interested in that. You want to get in touch with Claude? Can I give him, what do you want to give him? Your email?
No. Excuse me, I got it.
SCC South
someone turned
Carolina.
off their mic. Please turn your mic back on.
Oh, you got to put that back on. Push it. There you go. You got to hold it
No,
on.
no,
Let me see.
they didn't.
No.
No,
There you go.
Oh, you got to hold a long time.
Okay.
there you go.
I'll learn.
Rookies.
I know.
You can
This is
reach
where you-
Claude at SCCOSLL, South Carolina Convention of States Legislative Liaison. So it's an acronym, SCCOSLL at yahoo.com. Claude O'Donovan. And the website, you guys got a phenomenal website, conventionofstates.com.
That's really the place to go.
One of the easiest to navigate and read. You come out there, it tells you the problem, tells you the solution, tells you the strategy. The problem stated for our listening audience here on WSBR Radio, 7:40 a.m. on your dial. Food has just arrived. Can I eat on the air and talk and eat at the
Hey,
same time?
I can.
Oh, you can, I can't. You're also on theunitedwest.org, theunitedwest.org. You're on teapartycommunity.com, portions on breitbarttv.com, and the best place to listen to us is on iHeartRadio. Get an application on your smartphone, iHeartRadio. In the search bar, put WSBR 740 AM, Boca Raton. We'll come up every day, 4 o'clock, anywhere in the world. Anywhere you got an internet signal in the world, you can listen to our show. 4 o'clock Eastern Time, every single day, 5 days a week. I think we have, Mark, 1 or 2 seats left. We're taking about 25 people, 1 or 2 seats left for our trip leaving March 21, returning on the 31st. 10 fun-filled days of going to the hot spots in Israel, going up to the northern border, the Lebanese border, to wave to Hezbollah, going over to Syria, Claude. We're going to wave over to the Islamic State, the folks over there. Then we're going down into Gaza to wave to the Hamas over there. Then we're going into East Jerusalem to wave to the basic jihadis over there. Our fact-finding national security mission is simply designed to equip people to understand the imminent and existential threats faced by our number one national security partner, Israel, on an everyday basis, so that we can come back and for the remaining 635 days until the second Tuesday in November, November 8th, 2016, we can stand with our national security partner, Israel, and be with us. We're organizing somebody call the person that has their name starts with an A. Call that person. They're trying to reach me right now. And come with us. Meet us at the United States Capitol. Claude, you're talking about the need to take power away from the United States Capitol. Send it to the states. We're going to be at the United States Capitol on March 3rd this year, a welcome party for Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister.
Wonderful.
We're going to be there. But back to your critically important information. Some of the people that have joined with Claude O'Donovan, he's the South Carolina liaison to the legislature there for the Convention of States. Some of the people that have gotten on board with the necessity of a Convention of States in which to identify amendments necessary to returning power to the states are none other than, what's that guy's name?
Alan West.
Colonel Alan West, dear friend of ours, Governor.
Oh, Governor Jindal.
Governor Bobby Jindal of Louisiana. Michael Huckabee, a friend of ours, Mike Huckabee, former governor of Alabama, now presidential candidate. Glenn Beck jumped on board. You can't shut that off. Yeah, no, yeah. You just do that real quickly. It goes red, but you got to leave it on.
Okay. That's what
Okay?
I'm trying to do.
Next time, you lose a finger, okay? Sharia punishment up here. Glenn Beck, he's on board? What has he said about it?
I mean, Glenn Beck is absolutely 100% on board. And I think that becomes because David Barton is 100%
Oh,
on
okay.
board.
He's
So,
there.
I mean, I'm telling you, the people that know the history and understand what we're doing and what we need to do are adamant. And Glenn Beck is one of the most adamant. I mean, he's probably done 10 shows where he talked about nothing but Convention of States and this is the only answer. This is it.
All right, one way to put this into perspective for our viewing and listening audience, astute as they may be, Mr. O'Donovan, we like to, as a professor of mine used to say, we like to take the cookies from the upper shelf and bring them down to the lower shelf so you can reach them. Okay. Imagine you go for a job, you go get a job at one of the fast food hamburger joints, Burger King. And you're there, you want to work, you went through the crisis of President Obama's devastation of the U.S. economy. You're making $100,000 a year as an executive. Now you got to flip hamburgers because it's something you have to do right now. And you're making $10, $8, whatever it is per hour. And you got a boss, and he just wants more and more of that facility. He wants more and more and more of your money and more of your time and more of your effort. And the more you work, the more this boss takes from you. That's comparable in a goofy sort of sense to what the federal government is doing to the states. The state legislatures and the state citizens work real hard, and Washington says, sorry, we need more of that money. Sorry, we're going to redistribute the tax base that you people make because this new administration, we have these phenomenal policies and programs that we need to fund, and we're going to get the money from the states. Sooner or later, you're going to revolt in your little job and try to throw over your boss and you have a union or whatever. Same thing with the Convention of States. How is it different, Convention of States, from a constitutional convention? I know it's a very important point for...
Well, there's basically one constitutional convention. They called it a plenipotentiary or a wide-open convention. They could discuss any subject they want. A convention of states is one called by a minimum of 34 states. 3/4 of the states must, or 2/3 of the states must pass a bill calling for a convention of states to discuss a certain subject matter. And ours is a very stringent subject matter. It has to do with restricting the power, scope, and finances of the federal government, as well as restricting term limits on the officers and the judiciary would be these two things.
Oh, and the judiciary, right. That's a big change.
Right, but we don't, the convention itself will decide those different amendments to be submitted, but they have to fall within that scope. They can't be talking about gun rights and abortion and other areas. It's restricted to very, very... Now, let me read quickly. There's a group called the Federalist Society, which are the preeminent
good guys
for our Constitution. Sure, they're outstanding legal minds in this country. I'm going to read one sentence from an endorsement letter they gave us. It says the convention, while we have expressed some fears, some have expressed fears that the Convention of States might be misused improperly, controlled by Congress, it is our considered judgment that the checks and balances of the Constitution are more than sufficient to ensure the integrity of the process. The Convention of States mechanism is safe and is the only constitutional effective means available to do what is so essential to our nation, restoring robust federalism with genuine checks on the power of the federal government. That's just one long sentence in this endorsement by these gentlemen, and we're talking about top minds in the country.
Well, I have a question. Can I ask a question?
Well, some of those minds, yes, Mark.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand what's going on with the Convention of States. So you would come up and you would propose a constitutional amendment to, for example, term limits.
Yes.
You would say, we want now, then what would happen? Would it go back to the states individually to ratify that and then come back to...
The process will be, first we have to have 34 states call for the Convention of States on this subject. And it has to aggregate. All of the states have to be calling for the same exact wording convention. Then it says the Congress shall call this convention. Then each state will select and send delegates. Each state sets the priority for how many delegates they will have and who they will send. They have the power over that, and how those delegates will be actually controlled.
I guess I'm confused, a little bit confused about this between a constitutional convention. There's 10 states that are wanting to go with this, and you need 27 more, correct? Or 20. what, 24, what did you say,
24 more, yes.
24 more. And you set a date, and all these states come together and agree to a certain date and time in the future to have this convention, if you will? And how does the process?
Each
it's
of
very
these
confusing.
applications is submitted to the legislature, federal legislature, and they wait there until we got 34.
Okay.
There's no set date and time until we get the 34th. Then they will call the convention. Then the states will decide the delegates. Now, by the way, each state only gets one vote. So
Okay.
California could send 200 delegates, but they only get one vote.
Oh, that's
Okay.
good, because now they're not gonna like
another
that
question.
probably, because they have a larger population, but that's the way it
But that's
works.
historically how
Sure.
it's worked. There have been, back in the 17s and early 1800s, multiple of these meetings or conventions to discuss amendments and/or developing a constitution. So we have lots of precedents about how this can be controlled and organized, and that it can be limited to a very specific subject. So that's what will happen. Now, one of the things I don't want you to underestimate, too, that we haven't said anything about, is we are developing the most powerful grassroots organization the country has ever seen. I mean, really organized. We're not going to be fractured like Tea Party. Tea Party is wonderful, but in fact,
A lot of Tea Party people involved, this looks
right.
like. Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Mark Meckler was one of the
Yep.
founding co-founders of the Tea Party Patriots, which is the largest of all the Tea Parties. And he is our leader, one of our two leaders primarily in this. And
Name of it is Citizens for Self-Governance, right?
Right. He has an organization called Citizens for Self-Governance. Michael Ferris joined with him on Convention of States a year ago, August. And the power of this organization, we've already been able to use that a little bit in persuading some legislators to kind of listen to what their constituents are saying. But we will have this organization across the country that I believe will number in the millions that are with tremendous communication capability and ability to sway and help not only to get the conventions initially, but then the amendments have got to come out. Now, the amendments have to go to each state, and 38 states have to do it. Now,
That's a big
high
process.
bar.
This is a
It's
very
high
big
bar.
process,
My
and it ought to
question-
be a very big process.
My question is to get this thing started and implemented. Does the governor have to ask the federal government for a convention of states, and is that how does it actually? I mean, is it a vote inside the legislators that we want a convention of states? How does it actually work?
Actually, the governor, nor none of the federal officers or senators or U.S. congressmen or the president, nobody has anything to do this but state legislators, the House and Senate of each state. Nebraska is the only state that has unicameral, has one, so there's 99 legislatures across the country.
So the governor doesn't have veto power over the application?
He doesn't
Okay.
touch it.
All right, let me get a couple of pieces together here as we are on Enemies of the State. Tom Trento, your host right now. Micah, look at that. Did you show him the other place? Where we came from, you know? We have an audience today in our facility here, ladies and gentlemen, with 22 minutes left in the show. I have no idea what time it is because I can't do backward math that way. We start 5 after, and that little clock right there usually tells us the real time. See a little clock underneath the monitor? Claude, right over
I'm
there?
sorry, but I can't
Hey,
even see
Tom,
it.
That little box, there's nothing lit
Tom,
right now.
I'll give you the
It's not lit
5-minute
up.
signal, okay?
Mark never lit it,
Oh.
you know, and our producer's
Well,
not here, he's
deal
sick.
with it.
I'm
That's what
dealing
I
with it, but
deal
that's
with
what I'm telling everybody, it's 22 minutes left in the show, they can do the math, figure out what time it is. But we have Claude O'Donovan, who is the South Carolina Legislative Liaison to the Convention of States. Controversial issue for some, not for serious conservatives by any means, though serious conservatives may have various strategies that they think are better. But let me read from your website, Claude. Really, a very intuitive and simple to understand website. You say a case for a convention of states. Now, what we're arguing here, and if you want to hang in with us, folks, you got to buy into this next proposition. Washington, D.C. is too big, too bloated, taking too much money away from the states, and something needs to be done about that. If you believe that, then you need to listen very seriously to a case for the Convention of States. The problem, I'm going to read how it's stated on the website. The federal government has overreached its constitutionally established boundaries. We see that happening all day long. Mr. President, how could you do that? Oh, I have executive privilege. And has its hands in almost every areas of our lives. Let's have a Department of Education, Department of Ecology, Department of Environmental Care,
The
Department
fourth
of...
branch, I told you that.
Yeah, the bureaucracy. Our children and grandchildren will inherit a bankrupt nation run by an unaccountable bureaucracy. Problem. Solution. Solution. What?
Camera 3.
Camera 3. Solution. Article 5. Article V. Is it V or 5?
5, but
Okay.
Article 5.
We can call it V. Can we call it
Roman
V?
numeral V.
Article V. Article V of the United States Constitution allows us to call a convention of states. Does it really?
Yes, it does. There's two parts, and I'll tell you a little bit about that.
How many people, if we went out on the streets of Miami and said, what is Article V5? What is Article 5 of the United
You
States
talk about
Constitution?
Miami, you first have to get them to understand what the Constitution is before you even get to that.
He's being derogatory.
Well, let's go to Washington, D.C., and do a man-on-the-street interview. What does Article 5 of the United States Constitution say? And let's make it easy. We'll give them like 3 choices. Does it say you could have a convention of the states? Does it say you get free telephones?
Or
Does
the
it
right
say,
to have an abortion, yeah.
or you can have a free abortion? How much you want to bet B and C get selected over A, right? The solution, Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution allows for a call of the Convention of States to restrict, and the framers always wanted to restrict human nature's desire to abuse power and jurisdiction of the federal government, effectively returning the citizens' rightful power over the ruling elite. The only people going to be opposed to this are every Democrat on the face of the earth. They're going to be completely
Not
opposed to
true.
this.
Not
No?
true. No.
You have Democrats that don't want
We
centralized.
have right-thinking Democrats that support our measure. Substantial ones.
Yeah.
But let me get
Let me
tell you a
get the
little bit.
strategy
Ask
first,
you,
then we'll
ask
go to that. I'm giving all of our
Okay.
new folks coming in. So what's the strategy? Problem, Washington. Solution, the states. What's the strategy to do it? Here's where Claude is going to help us understand this. Working together, state legislators, the individual elected leaders of states, and American citizens, the grassroots you spoke about, can restore the checks and balances on federal power that were put into place by those guys we talked about 238 years ago to protect our liberty from the abuses of Washington, D.C. God help us. Yes, Claude, how do we do this?
I want to go quickly back to that, what you just said about does it have that other part? It does. What happened was on September the 15th, 2 days before they adjourned the Constitutional Convention in 1787, George Mason stood up. Thomas Jefferson said George Mason was the most brilliant man of his generation. Now, if Thomas Jefferson said that, this guy was pretty
He's got to be
smart.
pretty smart. Yes,
Right.
I've heard that.
But
Yes.
he stood up, he said, I have, and I'm pleased, I'm not quoting, I'm paraphrasing, but he stated that they had a real concern that there was only one way to the Constitution, that was that the national legislature, that's what they used to call it, the national legislature would propose amendments and pass it in both houses of it, and then submit it to the states, and there would be 3/4 would ratify it. That was the only method. He said, we need to have another. Suppose someday that this government becomes what it is today, that it's completely out of control. You've got a runaway executive, a runaway judicial. It's even using international law instead of the
crazy.
Constitution. We've got a legislature that will not discipline itself in any way, shape, or form because they like spending that money. It gets them votes. It gets them in. And you've got this bureaucracy. So you've got this runaway situation. And he knew that would happen, what foresight these men had. We should have done this 30 or 40 years ago, but he proposed that there be a method for the states to do an end run around the national legislature and actually call its own convention to wrest the power back to the states. What most people don't understand is the states are supposed to be running this country. It started to really erode back in Woodrow Wilson's day when they passed an amendment. At that time, it sounded really good. Hey, let's make the U.S. senators popular election. Up to that point, up to 1913, the senators were selected by the state legislatures. And why is that? Is because that gave the states power in the balance of power. The House of Representatives is the people's representative. The states have their representative, which was the Senate. But when they made them both popular, that started the erosion of the power of the states. And the states, that really was one of the most damaging things we could have done. Now, it doesn't sound like that, but it really was. And so consequently, we now end up with this runaway situation. And the second part of Article 5 addresses this time for right now.
We actually have a video here from you guys.
Did I say enough of it?
No, it was good. It was a good explanation. And I haven't been involved in thinking through a constitutional convention, which is what we referred to it in the 80s. And Convention of States makes much more sense. I haven't been involved in this, and I haven't been studying it lately. But since you've been getting involved, I've been looking into it more, and I'm impressed by. You have a video for us, Mark?
Yeah, there's a video of this. Actually, they have a little 3-minute video, the solution, the problem, and everything.
Yeah, let's play it. But before we play it, I'm looking at the legal board of reference to the Convention of States, which is the name of the organization that's initiating the leadership to get the state legislators to file an application. And when 34 of those applications come together, then there's going to be a convention of these states to discuss a very, very narrow, very restrained area of amending the Constitution. I'm looking at the legal people on it, and two names jump out. I recognize many names. Michael Farris is an American treasure.
Oh, absolutely.
Homeschool movement, worked with him years and years and years ago. But I see Mark Levine, who's a radio talk show host, but who's a preeminent constitutional attorney. And then I see our good friend Andy McCarthy's on here, Andrew McCarthy.
Yeah, co-op.
He is not only endorsing the Convention of States, he's on the legal board of reference.
Really?
Now, if Andy McCarthy said, Tom, I think we all should jump off this Brooklyn Bridge into the icy water, I would probably say, okay, let's go, Andy. And then, after we're freezing, say, why do we do that? And he said, well, a dragon was going to eat your head, I highly respect, particularly in the area of anything legal, Andy McCarthy's opinion. I will talk to him about this more. But right now, are you familiar with the video he's going to show?
Yeah, that's Michael Farris, I'm sure, is it not?
Why don't you introduce that, and he'll play it.
Well, Michael Farris, one of the preeminent constitutional attorneys in the world. He is the founder of Patrick Henry College, which is a leading legal college, amazing students that they turn out there. He was the lead counsel in the recent Hobby Lobby ruling. He was
the main guy. Yep.
He was
with Obamacare. Yep.
Almost on his own, organized and saved homeschooling for the entire. You talk to any homeschooler, they know who Michael Farris is.
Oh yeah, absolutely, tremendous guy.
They will tell you. He's raised 10 kids on his own. Well, his wife has raised 10 kids. He's been a busy guy, but they have 10 children, and just an amazing man. And I've gotten to know him, and I will say that it's almost like talking to a Thomas Jefferson or a James Madison or a Adams or whatever. This man is just, and he's so humble. And so you'll see that in
this is him in this video?
I'm sure that's what it is. Yes, go ahead.
Here we go.
Go ahead with Michael Farris.
Stakes are incredibly high.
The Dow dropped nearly 1,000 points and a half.
It's intimidating, it's frightening.
The partial government shutdown.
That's what's left. That's what's left.
We all know that our government is way off track. The debt is astronomical and is going to cripple not only our own freedom and our own economy, but our children and our grandchildren are going to be effectively slaves paying for all of the things that we're spending money on today. We also know that Washington, D.C. will never fix itself. The Founding Fathers recognized that this was a potential as well. And in Article 5 of the Constitution, they gave us a solution. The states have the power under Article 5 to call a convention of the states for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. Because sometimes what you need is not a change of personnel, you need a change of structure. The founders understood the importance of structure, and they gave the power to the states to create a new set of rules. When the federal government overstepped its boundaries, we could recalibrate the rules to take power away from Washington, D.C. and give it back to the people and to the states. There's a simple plan for doing this. There are 4,000 legislative districts that are really crucial to us, and we want to have grassroots organizations in 4,000 legislative districts across the country. These are state house legislative districts because the state legislature is what matters. We need you to join with us. We need 100 citizens in each of these districts to be citizen volunteers and local leaders to make sure that Washington, D.C.'s power is taken back and return it to the people. The Founding Fathers understood that structure was an important part of preserving liberty. Please join with us at conventionofstates.com and help us preserve liberty not only for ourselves, but for our children, our grandchildren, and the generations to come.
Good stuff, Claude. Succinct, right to the point. Tom Trento here with just a few minutes left in our show on Monday, February 9, 2015. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the air in our new studio. We did not think, in fact, I put a video out last night that we would not be here. I'd be broadcasting from WSBR studios in Boca Raton. But let's give Mark a hand. He worked into the wee hours.
He did.
And he had a bunch of Sherpas helping him. He was actually all alone. Got the place up and running. We have no soundproofing. What you hear in the background is all the craziness, and as the construction people are still building part of our place, we had a couple of guests walk by, one of whom was the TV guy putting in the TV stuff. Hey, live TV, live radio.
I want to point out one more guest. We have a gentleman standing back there right now.
We don't want to say names yet.
Huh? You don't?
We haven't gotten approval. Some people don't.
Give us a nod.
Do you want to be associated with our stuff? We're
The gentleman that designed this wonderful website that you're looking at, the man who's behind all that is standing back there. And
oh,
I just wanted to, can I acknowledge you? His name is Michael Tranchina.
oh!
Michael,
I know
say
Michael
that. There
Tranchina,
you
but now his life is forever marred by association with us. Some people would say.
Oh.
But that's okay.
Well, I'm here.
Yeah, I know. You know. Michael Tranchina is a dear friend for many years, and you did this website. You designed the concept.
Yeah, he's the brains behind it. He keeps
It's
it
tremendous. It's really good.
As the chief technology officer, I was responsible to make sure it got done.
Oh, there we go.
Correct.
Okay. That sounds bureaucratic to me. As the chief technology officer, you did it or you didn't do it, Michael?
I
Did
don't
you?
want to take credit.
Okay, you
something I
did
was
it. He
told by
did
Mike.
it. Okay, thank you. Are you getting that other video?
I'm guessing it was So God Made It Liberal, the tribute,
Yeah.
like a Paul Harvey thing?
Yeah, like 3 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah.
2 minutes. That's it.
Oh, okay.
All right. What we're going to do now, because it's not a Paul Harvey, but it sounds like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
We got just a few minutes left, and I think a good way to avoid the background noise is to play a video. But I think a good way to encapsulate the importance of the issue we're discussing today. And for the new drivers on I-95 or somewhere in South Florida from Miami to Palm Beach, just getting in your cars, catching the last half of Enemies of the State, Tom Trento, my good friend Claude O'Donovan, from South Carolina, originally California, then Florida, and all over the country, and now in South Carolina, staying one step ahead of the sheriff. Claude is the South Carolina legislative liaison for the Convention of States. Convention of States is simply a grassroots and grass tops movement by legislators, academics, lawyers, and serious patriots to return power to the states, the 10th Amendment idea, from a runaway bureaucracy and a judicially supreme executive office and United States Supreme Court office abusing that which the framers put into play. Convention of States is a big convention down the road to sort this out. One way to draw a very dramatic line of distinction between individuals who want to take power away from Washington, return it to the states, is to not only show Michael Farris's analysis of the Convention of States, but to show this next video. Because this video is emblematic and represents those individuals, the liberals, who do not want decentralized state activity. They want a strong central Politburo type bureaucracy in Washington because that's where the goodies come from. The closer you are to the money, the less you're going to get. If the money comes from far away, you'll figure out a way to finagle it. Take a look at "And Then God Made the Liberal."
And on the 9th day, God spilled some coffee on an angry possum, and God made a liberal. God said, "I need someone willing to get up at the crack of noon and check their Facebook and tweet vile things, take a nap, borrow money from their parents, and stay out all night drinking Pabst ironically and snorting bath salts and wine until midnight." So God made a liberal. He said, "I need a person that can take a thriving community and turn it into a debt-ridden post-apocalyptic welfare state. I need someone who thinks meat is murder, produce is raised in grocery aisles, who can't fix a flat tire or change her own oil, and who, when forced to finally get a job as a barista, makes you wait for your latte while they play Angry Birds on their iPhone and then takes his union-mandated 2-hour break." So God made a liberal. God said, "I need somebody dumb enough to believe in global warming and deficit spending, yet arrogant enough to look down at hard-working folk because they don't have a worthless PhD in 17th century Belgian lesbian studies. It had to be someone that would tax and spend, sue and attack, flip and flop, legislate from the bench and pass an unread bill. A person that would take a story of American success and turn it into a lesson of injustice." So God made a liberal. It had to be someone who'd lie to themselves and others and envy the successful. Someone to whine, cry, demand, screech, and scream sexist, intolerant, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, racist, bigot. It had to be someone that at the end of the day they could go home after helping rip apart a country with divisive race and class war, and who would laugh and then sigh with mocking eyes, thinking, "If I hadn't aborted all my children, they'd probably say they want to spend their life doing what Dad does." So God made a liberal.
That was great.
That's it, right? Yeah.
I want to say one thing, though.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When I studied political science in college, we found out that people who were ultra left and ultra right had the same methods. And
Methods. Yeah.
methods. Yeah. It's almost the Soloninsky type of rules for radicals type of thing. One of our greatest people that we have problem is the ultra right. They sell fear. I call them merchants.
Oh, you mean regarding the Convention of States?
Yeah.
But I want you to close on this. We got a couple of minutes, but one comment on "And God Made a Liberal." We have some very dear friends who take offense at being called liberals because they're liberal in their social activity, all of that. And they refer to those people as leftists. I think it's a more accurate term.
I think progressive liberals.
Progressive liberals are leftists because they are moving in a communist direction.
Yeah.
But that was a funny piece. That's got a couple of million hits. But yeah, you got about a minute to wrap up that. And what do you want people to do? Right now, people are going, all right, I'm interested in this thing. What do you want me to do, Claude? And you said there's a problem with people on the right selling fear. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that fear is an easy sell. And so they say, oh, it would be a constitutional convention, and once you open it up, they can talk about anything they want. That is just flat bull. It is not true. There's so much precedence. And you see these legal minds. These people are patriots to the core, and they realize that this is a controlled situation. Listen to what Thomas Jefferson had to say. He said, "Some men look at constitutions with this sanctimonious reverence and deem them like the Ark of the Covenant, so too sacred to be touched. They ascribe to men of the preceding age wisdom more than human, and suppose that they did go beyond amendment. Whatever they did went beyond amendment. Then he said, let's go on to perfecting the Constitution by adding, by way of amendment, those forms which time and trial show are still wanting. So that's Jefferson talking about it. This is the process. Now, what
Got about
I want
15
you
seconds.
to do as folks that are interested in this, go to conventionofstates.com. There's a petition there you can sign. We've got hundreds of thousands of people have signed already. It will be immediately sent to your personal legislator, your House of Representatives instantly, and your senator, your state senator. Both of them will get a copy of that. They'll be notified that you, a constituent, signed this petition.
All right, we got to wrap it up.
Be sure and put your town and your zip code in there. They need to know that. But do that and get to be part of this movement across the nation. We're going to make this happen.
There's no downside to this, folks, because if the convention occurs, good things will come out of it. If all this effort and the convention is one state short, then a tremendous movement will have occurred in the United States that's going in the right direction. Thank you very much. Thank you, Claude, for being our first guest in our new studio here.
My
Half
pleasure.
put together as it is. God bless you and your work. We're over. The show's done. Mark, good job. See you all tomorrow. We'll get it